huge milestone reached. We officially hit 4,000 subscribers. I genuinely appreciate every single one of you who watches, likes, and supports the channel. Thank you so much for being part of this journey.
Chapter 17. Bloomund. Rimuru's POV. You think this is a fake? Why don't I prove myself to you then? BYDD was saying as he walked towards our table. I was expecting Katarina to say something about accepting the challenge, but when she didn't speak up at all, I looked towards her. Her demeanor had completely changed. Instead of the outgoing girl I knew, she had slid further back into her chair, trying to avoid the confrontation entirely. Why is she acting like that? Normally she would be all for showing her strength. I couldn't help but wonder at the sudden change, it being so unlike her to avoid situations like this. Master, did you perhaps forget that cat is extremely shy? Wait, she all back grew home. Of our people she talks that though? Thought time to. She feels safe in Tempest. We are no longer in Tempest, and are surrounded by strangers, Sage said this matter-of-factly, as if it was the most obvious thing in the world. Thinking back on Katarina's interactions back home, I quickly realized that while she was mostly open to those who lived there, she still avoided outsiders. She only talked to Fuse and Yom at first when I was around as moral support. How blind I have been. At least she can talk with people who she has gotten to know easily enough, such as Anne, Cavil, and Guido. After the short conversation, I focused back on the events around us. BYDD was suddenly not so eager to pick a fight, meaning I missed something critical happening. It wasn't long before I realized what I had missed. People started to swarm around our table, talking about Cavil and his group as if they were some kind of heroes. It was a sight to see, and I wasn't sure if I was dreaming or not while looking on. With the table surrounded, there was no way to escape the crowd. I could only watch on, while keeping an eye on Katarina. BYDD, seeing the attention, paled significantly as he realized just who he was talking to. While the trio didn't seem like much to me, especially with all the situations they get into, they seemed to have gathered a fanbase in the human lands. BYDD eventually recovered from the shock and walked over to Cavil, bowing several times before speaking. You three are so mean. If you've come back home, you should have at least said as much. Sorry, you are. Cavil's confusion at the situation almost caused Katarina to laugh at the emotional blow he must have caused. BYDD took the question in stride and quickly explained. Come on. It's BYDD, the person you beat up over in the capital. With those words spoken, Katarina couldn't stop herself from giggling anymore, and I was inclined to agree with her. BYDD had gone from thief to conman, and got called out for it. With all the attention on the trio, Katarina and I went unnoticed by everyone else. Thinking back on everything that has happened, I wondered why they had become so famous. They weren't that strong in my eyes and always got into trouble, usually ending with monsters chasing them. The only reasonable answer I could come up with was them using all the monster drops we gave to them that we didn't need. Giving each of them a death glare, I realized my suspicions were correct as all three instantly stiffened up. You know why I am looking at you, right? Yes, sir. Sighing at the reaction of them answering perfectly together, I shook my head in disappointment. The only good thing to come out of this is they owed me a favor for all the help they have been given. Eventually the crowd started to disperse, and we were able to escape into the streets once more. Our ride to the capital would be arriving shortly, so we decided it was best not to waste any more time. We headed to the pickup point so there was no risk of missing our ride completely. The rest of the trip went without incident, reaching the capital of Londo around late afternoon. It was at this point that the nightmare started. Hey, don't run off by yourself. I called out, my annoyance clear. Ever since we made it into the marketplace, Katarina couldn't hold back her curiosity and started to look at nearly every store we passed by. Grabbing her arm, I pulled her to a sudden stop, which earned a look of annoyance at the sudden action. Why did you stop me? There are so many interesting things to see. She tried to defend herself, only to be met with a glare. I waited for her to calm down a little before responding. We can have time to explore later, when someone can always be with you. For now, though, we have other business to take care of. With those words, she finally stopped resisting and let me pull her back towards the others. Fine, but you promised to let me explore later. What happened to the girl who shied away from others just a few hours ago? I couldn't help but ask this, as her reactions were completely different than when we met BYDD. She said something about being too curious to worry about being shy, and that she wasn't talking to strangers anyway. It sounded like an excuse, but I wasn't going to press the issue, as we were now in front of the guild building. Seeing the 5-story stone building in front of me, I thought back to what we saw on the way here. The houses were built with a medieval European feel to them. They were old-fashioned, but solidly made, at least. The other major thing that I noted was most people here walked around armed, though the gear itself left a lot to be desired. Considering the older style of buildings and the poor equipment, it was a shock to see the guild building was temperature-controlled. It was a leap in technology from what I had already seen, but less of a surprise considering the magic that was used in this world. Katarina quickly pulled my attention as she spoke up after being quiet for some time. Hey, Anne. Can I be an adventurer like you? Of course. That is a great idea. It will help you get into Inglacia without trouble as well. Anne was quick to agree to the idea and started leading us over to the desks. The 3 desks were self-explanatory, being labeled expert, general, and sales. We were being led towards the general counter to register for being adventurers, and the desk was taller than I stood. I stood on my tiptoes just to see over the edge, and Katarina didn't fare much better. The receptionist seemed hesitant to accept us, seeing us peek over the counter. We would like to sign up for being adventurers, please. Aren't the 2 of you a little young? Why don't you come back in a few years? She said while looking down at us. Cavill was quick to come to the rescue after seeing what was happening. Hey now, these 2 can beat all 3 of us alone. We wouldn't stand a chance against even one of them. Is my word good enough to let them register? Oh, they were able to impress you? I find it hard to believe they could beat all 3 of you, but if you are sure, then it should be okay. It is quite dangerous, though. She was still trying to convince us that we should wait. That is okay, we don't mind. Katarina spoke up after being ignored, drawing the attention back to herself for a moment. Cavill had already explained the basics of how the guild worked, so when we were each given the papers to fill out, it was easy to do so. We only had to fill out what we could, so I left it at my name and swordsmanship. I peeked over at Katarina's paper and was confused by what I saw. Name, Elin, skills, magic. Why did you pick that? The change of name alone was enough to throw me off. I could at least understand the magic part, with her learning it under Anne. Katarina leaned in and spoke softly into my ear, not wanting others to hear. You don't have a city named after you. I don't want unneeded attention. The explanation was so simple that I had to curse myself for not thinking about it sooner. It would have been smart for me to change my name as well, with humans soon to be traveling to Tempest more often. It was too late to change it, so I decided to just hope for the best. With both of us wanting to take the monster-slaying test, it caused more people to look our way in concern. It was clear that they didn't think much of us, looking like kids as we did, but I wasn't worried about it. Cavill and his group were the center of attention, meaning most of the comments weren't directed towards us to start with. Instead, they were talking to our friends, shocked that we could beat all 3 of them with ease. While all this was going on, Anne had traded in some stuff to the counter, using the time to finish some of her own tasks. Meanwhile, the receptionist gave her permission for us to take the exam and went to get the person to oversee it. I wasn't worried about the test itself, seeing as someone like BYDD was a D+ rank. The minimum for being an adventurer was D rank, but I was hoping to go all the way to a today. Katarina, standing beside me, seemed just as eager to get started. She bounced on the balls of her feet as if unable to stand still. I smiled and patted her on the head as we waited, the time we had to stand around being short. The woman brought back a man with her, and he quickly went about judging us. So, the two of you are the ones wanting to take the tests? And stronger than Cavil even? Humph, well, follow me then. He gave an angry glare at our friends before turning around and walking away. Katarina saw the glare as well, and curious as ever, asked about it. Why does it seem like this person doesn't like you? It isn't because of us, is it? No. It's not because of you. Thegis is just jealous about how famous we have gotten, considering he is retired. Cavil glanced down towards Thegis's leg while saying that. One leg was prosthetic, so it was clear why he was retired. We were led to a large building that resembled a gymnasium with a large magic circle in the middle. Along with us and Thegis, there were numerous other guild members that came to watch the test as well. Entertainment must really be lacking if they consider something like this fun to watch. The rules of the test were quickly explained about how to advance and the risks in taking the tests themselves. It all seemed like pretty standard stuff as Katarina and I walked into the magic circle. When we stepped inside, the circle created a semi-circle barrier behind us that we could escape behind if needed. This should be fun. I wonder what type of test we will be facing? Maybe a night spider. Katarina questioned what we were being tested against, seeing as Thegis couldn't fight us directly with his injury. All right then. Defeat the monster in front of you. Thegis called out as he activated summoning magic. He first summoned 2 hunter hounds that, while well trained, were nothing to write home about. Katarina didn't even have to move as I sliced off both their heads in a single motion before they could even attack. With that single attack, we were both granted E rank as we were taking the tests as a team. All right, next test please. Thegis was letting his pride get the better of him as he talked down to us, saying that we shouldn't let our guard down. Can we skip to a rank yet? I don't want to be here all day. Katarina stepped forward with a smile that could make grown men run in fear. Says the girl who hasn't done anything yet. Very well, let's move on to the next test. Just like that, he managed to make Katarina mad. I almost feel sorry for the next summon, almost, but not quite. The next test was a dark goblin decked out in full armor and weapons with plenty of muscles to show for it. I wasn't worried about the fight as I took a step back and let her take center stage this time. With a single spinning kick, Katarina sent the goblin flying into the barrier. It quickly dissipated into nothing afterwards, showing that it was killed on impact. Thankfully, no one saw that the helmet was completely caved in as well, which would have led to more questions about her strength. I always wanted to do that. I'm glad I got to let some anger out on that thing. She was relaxed as we regrouped on our side of the testing area. Behind us I could hear Cavil speaking up as well. Wow, didn't that goblin look a lot like Gobta? Why did she hit it so hard? Good job, Elin. Anne called out, ignoring Cavil's comment. She even seemed happy about what happened instead. Just what has Gobta been up to that would make both Anne and Katarina want to kill him? I wasn't expecting an answer to the inquiry, but I should have known better. Gobta has taken to peeking in on the women when they are changing or bathing. Seriously? Didn't first he his learn lesson the time? Negative. Sighing at what I was just told, I decided to do something about it. Sue, please tell Hakuryu to intensify Gobta's training by tenfold. Understood. Hakuryu is pleased to hear your decision. Sue was quick to respond to the request. Good, he deserves it. Did just smirk? You? It was your imagination. Right, like course hell. It was. Silence. Sage didn't speak up after my outburst, causing me to wonder if it really was my imagination after all. There are more important things to worry about for the time being. With the conversation finishing quickly, I looked on, waiting for the next test. Thought acceleration was extremely useful in situations like this. I thought she was a magic user. How is that girl so strong? Maybe it was support magic. I didn't see her cast any, though. The audience was certainly enjoying themselves trying to figure out how Katarina killed the goblin in a single blow. While they were talking, Thegis summoned several giant bats next, claiming that we needed practice in group combat. A couple of onlookers spoke out about this, but were quickly drowned out by the signal to start. Right, let's get this over with. With Katarina having just taken out the last test, I thought it was only fair I take this one. The bats seemed frozen as I walked forward and started to cut them out of the air. I didn't even need to ramp up my perception to see them, which was how easy this test was for me. Looking around, I noticed that everyone was paying close attention to us now, not wanting to miss anything. That is the C rank done with, next please. My words brought Thegis back from his thoughts after he was shocked by what I just did. Katarina stepped forward while he regained his composure. I'll take the next one. These tests are so easy. They aren't even taking the test seriously, just swapping out who deals with each one. Ha ha ha. Very well. I have no doubt that you could beat Cavil's group now. Prepare yourselves for the trial of B rank. He called out while preparing another summoning circle. I had to wonder why he called it a trial instead of a test this time, but I wasn't too worried about actually passing it. Someone ran off to get the guild master while all this was going on. They were saying something about the tests not being fair while disappearing. With the summoning completed as the person ran off, I looked on at the evil creature in front of us. It was a lesser demon, its monstrous look making its origins obvious. I wanted to absorb it and learn its skills, but held myself back, knowing that it would be suspicious if I did so. Report. Summoning magic, summon demon learned. Learning a new magic was far too easy compared to arts that took forever to master. Thegis was going on about how the demon could nullify simple melee attacks and that now was the time to back out. Icicle Impale. Katarina shouted as she cast a magic I hadn't seen before. In front of everyone present, a massive spike of ice shot up from the ground, impaling the demon completely through. It wasn't even a battle, as the demon was instantly killed with the one spell, destroying most of its body. So can we take the A rank test now? She asked this so casually that everyone in the room went back into shock after recovering from seeing a demon killed so easily. Thegis looked like he wanted to protest, but before anyone could move, another voice rang out. Enough of this, all of you. Katarina's POV. I was getting ready for the A rank test when a voice I recognized yelled out from behind us. Fuse! It's good to see you again. Does this mean we can't take the A rank test? I wanted to try for S rank if that was even a thing, but I wasn't sure that would be possible right now. A Fuse tried to speak but was quickly interrupted. Thegis, having walked over and breathing heavily after summoning so many monsters, spoke up. Sorry Elin, but that won't be possible. A rank tests are only done in Inglacia, and you need to work your way up to them first. Pity. So, we are done here then. I was disappointed we couldn't continue climbing the ranks, but there was nothing else for it. I was glad that Fuse was quick to pick up on my name being different, as he quickly switched gears. After giving a scolding to the trio for not bringing us straight to him, he finally managed to calm down enough to invite Dad and me to his office. I could have just used my guild master privileges to get you B rank adventurer cards. There was no need to go through all this. With a resigned sigh, he started to walk away, leaving us to follow. The simple statement told everyone around that we were held in high regard by Fuse. It also showed we were both strong, since he was willing to give us the cards without the test. It was fun anyway. I'm glad we got to do the test. I got to take some frustrations out on the goblin. While I said this, I swear I heard Thegis groaning in the background about me instantly killing it without a weapon. Settling into Fuse's office, we each took our seats, except for the three fools who were kneeling on the ground. Those being Cavil, Aaron, and Guido because they let us participate in the tests instead of following orders to bring us straight to Fuse. Fuse managed to relax once we got out of sight of the other people, but still seemed a little stressed. The only saving grace is that the demon was killed with magic, making it believable to the point where most people won't question how you managed it. After a bit of praise from Thegis for how skilled we were, the topic was quickly changed towards politics. I wanted to ignore the entire conversation, but I did come on this trip under the idea of learning more about humans and politics in general. With that in mind, I decided to try and follow along, even if I would undoubtedly fail. Most of the conversation was just talking about our plans in Inglacia, such as meeting Yuki. Fuse also insisted that we talk to the King of Bloomund himself before we left. The original plan was to leave soon after arriving here to head off for Inglacia. We couldn't pass up the possible alliance, though, as we did need more allies. Dad and Fuse ended up talking so late into the night that I passed out at some point. Waking up the next morning in a bed I didn't recognize, I panicked for a second before realizing I was safe. When I went to look around, it became clear I was still inside of the guild building, and I quickly located Dad with the help of Sage. I didn't want to be caught out alone in a human nation just in case someone figured out that I was a monster. The day was set aside to talk to a baron, who would help work out the details of the alliance between us and Bloomund. When we met with the king himself, it would be to sign what was already agreed on, so that no one's time was wasted in the long run. I wasn't looking forward to a long, boring day of talking politics, but I was also curious about how negotiations worked. Curiosity was a double-edged sword, it would seem, as the talks progressed throughout the entire day. I understood very little of what was being said between Dad, Fuse, and the Baron. The main points were easy enough to get the idea of, but the subtle maneuverings behind each word eluded me. Fuse, thankfully, was there to help us out, and shot down a lot of the requests that Baron Veriard made. This meant that we didn't give rights or promises away that we didn't need to. The main point that caught my attention, and the only one I spoke up about, was the Mutual Defense Pact. Fuse, can I ask you something? Fuse was on our side of this negotiation, so I thought it would be safe to ask him instead of Veriard. He looked over towards me, a little shocked that I spoke up before responding. Of course, ask me anything. With a quick nod, I voiced what was on my mind. Do you think Bloomund as a country could offer significant help against the threats we have faced so far? The Orc Lord? Sister, and Charybdis. On top of that, who would Bloomund need protection against? Monsters shouldn't be a big issue with our people helping to control their populations in the forest. I wasn't sure what led me to the idea, but I had a feeling that we were being used. I couldn't see any reason for Bloomund to request the defense pact when the monsters were already killed by the guild. Unless there was another force that might attack them, there was no reason to offer us help either. When I asked these questions, Veriard paled slightly, but ignoring him, I listened to what Fuse had to say. It's true that we wouldn't be able to offer a lot of help against any of the threats you have mentioned. The force we could muster might even just be a hindrance against such strong foes. As for the protection for Bloomund, we are a small nation, and a single major event could cause our downfall. He was avoiding the question about who would attack them. I looked over towards Dad to see him thinking deeply about everything that had been said so far. His eye eventually lit up, as if he had figured something out that I didn't already know about. With a smile that conveyed his thanks towards me, he focused back on Veriard. You want us to act as protection against other humans, and possibly even the Eastern Empire, don't you? With those words, Veriard laughed nervously. So, you figured it out. With all the cards finally on the table for this issue, the final decision was up to Dad to make, as he was the ruler. Whatever he decided would turn out fine for us, as this trip was partly to build connections in the first place. Having talked most of the day away, the skies were quickly growing darker as the conversations continued. Eventually, I was unable to keep my eyes open anymore, finding myself sleeping off to the side once more while the adults continued talking. The next 2 days were spent with Aeon and the others exploring the town. I was starting to get bored with all the official meetings of the past 2 days, but finally, I could explore the town. I managed to check out a lot of the shops, try a ton of food, and even explored the smithing areas. Having done all this, and enjoying myself immensely, I was in a good mood when it was time for the summit. The formal wear wasn't clothing I would normally wear, but I figured it was possible to deal with for a single day. I was wearing a dress of black and purple that complemented my hair and eyes nicely. Dad, on the other hand, was wearing something he called a tuxedo. The dress was made by Shuna before we left, with her saying it was just in case you need it. She was right, of course. I did end up needing it. Wow, look at you. That dress certainly fits you. Dad walked over and smiled when he saw me. Tilting my head to the side in confusion, I said, I don't like wearing this kind of stuff, though. That is probably for the best. I don't want you catching the attention of too many men, after all. With a soft laugh to himself, we started towards where the summit would be held. The summit dragged on for what felt like forever. I was already bored out of my mind only a single hour into it. The one thing that made it more bearable was Dad glaring daggers at anyone who looked at me for too long. It was only a couple of people, but just from the way they were acting, I couldn't help but dislike them instantly. When everyone started to leave, we got to talk with the king in a more private setting. The talks didn't last for long as they were mostly just a courtesy between two rulers, though. This meant I could escape and change out of the dress into some more comfortable clothing quicker than anticipated. While Dad went to talk with Veriard about possible trade deals going forward, I escaped and joined up with Anne to enjoy what remained of the day. With Bloomin being such a peaceful place, I started to let my guard down a little while walking around the city. I never walked around alone either, so that helped as well. Both Anne and Dad tried their best to have me come out of my shell, and all their efforts amounted to little in the end. I would talk to shop owners or others that caught my interest, but for the most part, I tried to avoid strangers completely. It did become obvious that I was more willing to talk to people I didn't know when people I did know were around, at least. Overall, this trip had been enjoyable so far, and I was looking forward to seeing a major nation like Inglacia. We had already gotten our adventurer cards from the guild. With identification and an introductory letter to the guild master, we had finished everything we wanted to do here. Along with the alliance between our nations, Dad also set up a trade deal for potions with Bloomund. The deal was much like what he did with Dworgen, so the process went smoothly. He was annoyed at himself for revealing the full potions we can make, though, as it gave them an idea of how advanced we were. The full potion that was tested was used to heal Thegis's leg completely. On the plus side, Tempest would soon have a way to earn more money through trade. Fuse had promised to point merchants he could trust towards Tempest. With that promise in place, we didn't have to worry about advertising, as the merchants would do it for us while selling our products. With everything finished in Bloomund, it was time to head out once more. The 3 idiots would be coming with us to Inglacia, so it was just the 5 of us, plus Ronga. With the wolf wagon being used once more, the trip through the plains was both peaceful and fast. It would take 3 days to reach Inglacia at the pace we were making. That didn't seem impressive to me, but according to Ian, it would normally take almost 2 weeks to reach the capital. Third-person POV. Guy Crimson sat on his throne of ice with his eyes closed and a contemplating look on his face. She is heading to Inglacia, huh? Humans are so stupid sometimes that I have to wonder if she will be all right. You know that there are few humans in the Western nations that can hold a candle to her, even if she is in a weakened state. Velzard appeared behind the throne from nowhere, her steps almost silent on the floor of ice. Even so, I would rather consider possible outcomes rather than regret not doing everything I can later. Guy shifted in his seat and called for rain while sitting up. Velzard, seeing the change in Guy's attitude, smiled warmly while looking down towards him. It would seem that so much suffering and grief has finally melted your heart, hardened by pride, a little. He laughed softly at this remark and looked up at her in turn. Don't forget the love I have been shown as well. It was a moment that no outsider would ever get to see, the soft intimacy of lovers, instead of the hardened facade of a demon lord who loved to strike fear into humans. The sight only lasted for a moment as the sound of the massive double doors opening drew the attention of both lovers. Rain walked into the room and bowed low. You called for me, Lord Guy. Curiosity was mixed into her voice as she tried to figure out what the reason for the summons was. Yes, I want you to head to Inglacia. Katarina will be there in a few days, and you are to keep an eye on her to make sure nothing happens. That said, you are not to be seen. Guy paused for a second while thinking about something before continuing. Also, can you let those two know that she has returned for me? Make sure to explain her loss of memory as well. Rain stood up and nodded. It will be done. She was acting serious, but the soft glint in her eyes betrayed the excitement she had for this mission. Waving a hand to dismiss her, Guy settled back into his throne. You can return when Katarina and Rimuru make it back to Tempest. Do not interfere unless it looks like they are in mortal danger. With Rain teleporting away to Inglacia, Guy let out a sigh. I wish we could interfere directly, as it would make this so much easier. You know we can't do that. If we did, it would only draw more unwanted attention to them before they were able to defend themselves properly. Velzard leaned down and gave a quick kiss to Guy before walking off into the main part of the castle. Guy knew it to be the truth, but couldn't help but worry. Velgrind had hinted that events in the world were about to pick up pace. That unpredictability was enough to cause him to expect the worst. It was a delicate balance he was trying to keep of protecting those he cared about, and doing his job as mediator. His main concern lay with the Eastern Empire. The Jura forest rested on its borders, and Rudra would jump at the chance to capture Katarina. The dragon family was extremely close-knit, but Rudra had been changing over the years. He no longer seemed like the same person he used to be. The talk with Velgrind during the reunion only strengthened this idea when it was mentioned his bracelet was no longer working. At least I can count on them to keep an eye out for them while they are in Inglacia. He spoke the thought to an empty room before falling silent once more. Chapter 18. The Big City. Third-person POV. Sat in an office, a clown was wearing an asymmetrical mask and striped clothing of mostly purple. That plan was a complete failure. It might be a little while longer until Clayman awakens to be a true demon lord, sadly. Here I thought the orc rampage would guarantee us enough deaths. It can't be helped, Laplace, the other person in the room spoke, his tone light, and unaffected by the news. Laplace nodded in agreement as he spoke his mind. If he wasn't messing around with other stuff, it might have worked. He still has it out for Leon, after all. That is true. So, is that all you came here for? Or was there something else you wanted to talk about? Of course not. That was just a side note. It seems like the church is getting more active, so I have been considering being more serious about my infiltration there. Laplace spoke up, sounding playfully offended that his boss thought he was only there for small talk. Humming softly to himself, the other man thought for a moment before responding. That is true. With their current activities, it might be easier to sneak in. I wish you the best of luck, and will be eager to hear about what you uncover. Just make sure you don't mess this up, and I'll be glad to grant you a wish if you figure out what is behind the Holy Church. Really? Well, that is a nice motivation. Laplace stood up and started heading out, his joy clear in both tone and actions. Rain's POV. Finally, I can get away from that frozen hellscape for a while. Sure, I have an important task, but that doesn't mean I can't indulge myself a little here in Inglacia. Walking into a shop just outside the walls of Inglacia, I looked around, even as the bell connected to the door rang. It didn't take long for someone to come towards the front of the store and greet me. A young woman with white hair and green eyes, wearing a kimono, came out front and looked at me. Her eyes lit up as she saw me. Rain! Shouting my name, she wasted no time hugging me. Yuzuha, it's good to see you again. I was smiling widely, as it had been far too long since my last visit. Can you take me to Shin and Shini? I need to talk to them about something. They are in the back, I'll take you to them. Yuzuha pulled me along by the hand as we headed into the back rooms of the store, which also acted as a house. Sitting at a table in one of the back rooms was a human with black hair and eyes, dressed in black. The second person was an elf with white hair and blue eyes, dressed in blue and white casual clothing. The two were Shin and Shni, respectively. They were seen as mysterious to most, but those who got to know them would know their kind nature. Yuzuha, why don't you watch the front of the store while we talk? You can play with Rain once we are done, Shni spoke up, her voice soft, yet commanding. I settled down into a free seat as Yuzuha left, letting out a small sigh. I hope the two of you are ready for what I am about to tell you. With a soft laugh, Shin spoke up while closing the door and making sure no one could listen in on us. You seem serious about whatever news you have brought, but also happy. It must be important if Guy didn't use the bracelet to inform us. He raised his hand, showing off a bracelet depicting a single dragon, which was black and light blue in color. The bracelet alone signified his connection to the true dragon family. More specifically, that it was the Void Princess or Spirit Empress that trusted him enough to bestow the bracelet. Shni had an identical bracelet that was nearly hidden by her sleeve. I still remembered when they were first introduced to us an eon ago. Katarina herself took an interest in them and formed an unbreakable friendship with the two people seated in front of me. While communications through the bracelets were secure, it was true that Lord Guy liked to send messengers instead. The person who brought the message indicated how important the information was. It was a sign of respect, so far as I could tell, that he didn't take the easy path. Then again, he rarely went out to deliver the message himself. Taking a deep breath, I decided to get the information out there and over with. She has revived. Katarina has come back. Both Shin and Shni smiled widely at the news. Shin was the first to respond. It's about time. She had us worried that she would never reappear. What about the others? With a shake of my head, I answered. We have had no word from Valia the Void Empress, Velika the Spirit Empress, or Veldanava the Star King Dragon. If they have revived as well, they are keeping a low profile. That said, Katarina has lost her memories and revived as a non-true dragon. Why are you using their aliases? As for Katarina, that is strange indeed, and worrisome. We knew she would lose her memories, but to revive as something other than a true dragon? How is that even possible? Shni was clearly confused and trying to piece together a reason. We don't know either. I was sent here to keep an eye on her while she is visiting human nations, though. She is many times weaker than before. Lord Guy is afraid of someone taking advantage of that fact if they realize who she is. As for the aliases, we can't remember Valia's true name for some reason, and I went along with that for Velika. I tried my best to give them all the information we had, but we hadn't figured out much to start with. With a quick nod, Shin stood up. Well, if that is the case, then we will help keep an eye on her as well. You are welcome to stay here until such time that you are called back. She will be arriving in a few days. I have been ordered not to interfere directly if I don't absolutely have to, so my main task is observing. I stood up as well, wanting to scout the city before her arrival. Shni, seeing us stand, followed suit and walked towards the door. It's a good thing we don't have such restrictions, then. With a knowing smirk, she walked out of the room, effectively ending our conversation. Rimuru's POV. After a not-so-short lesson from Fuse about the Western Council and the Holy Church, we had set off towards Inglacia. While we travelled down the road in the wolf wagon, I thought back to everything I was told. The Council was a collection of countries that formed due to the threat of monsters. While that was the main reason for them, they held significant power over many of the other smaller countries. The larger countries could donate more to buy more seats in the Council, meaning their voice held more weight. Many of the smaller countries didn't have much of a say, but also couldn't leave due to the protection it offered. Monsters were the biggest threat to humans in this world. With the Council being the main benefactor to the Guild, they had a lot of say over who would be helped by adventurers. The Western Holy Church, on the other hand, was, in short, a bunch of monster-slaying zealots. Their doctrine boiled down to little more than, monsters are bad, humans are good. They backed this up with crusaders who would help those who believed in their religion as well. With monsters being a real threat in this world, it would make sense to rally behind a religion that promised to protect you from the monsters. I knew it would be best to keep my distance for the time being until I could prove we weren't a threat. The worst part about the church was that Hinata Sakaguchi was the head knight of the church. She was Shishu's student and, from what I was told, seriously strong as well. I wanted to talk to her at some point, but it would have to wait until I could be sure she wouldn't kill me on sight. The trip went smoothly, with us only running into some armed patrols that warned us about robbers and thieves. They mentioned that no strong monsters would be around this area, but even if there were, it wouldn't be an issue for us. It took 3 days to reach Glacier. It would have taken far longer if not for the fact Ronga could run at speed for extended periods of time, and the wagon made it much more comfortable to do so. This line is longer than the one we skipped at Dworgen, Katarina said as she looked over towards the walls of the city. Anne stepped up next to her and looked over the lines as well. Thankfully, we don't have to deal with that. The first gate is just to check identification, and we are good to go. The second is for if you don't have identification, and if you mess that up, the third is for your last chance, though you are basically treated as a criminal at that point. Anne was quick to explain what the lines were for so that Katarina wouldn't have to worry about standing around all day long. We all ended up jumping off the wagon, and I stored it away in my stomach before we walked the rest of the way to the gate. With Ronga in my shadow, we shouldn't have any problems getting inside. Whoa, you are an adventurer, little lady. This isn't some kind of joke, is it? The guard at the gate questioned me as I handed over my guild card. I'm not a lady. Just check the papers. I was annoyed at being called a lady, and it was clear in my tone as I spoke as well. The guard mentioned something about me wanting to act grown up at my age as he scanned the card. He carried on saying my voice was cute and, with the mask, I looked girly. I could hear Katarina giggling behind me as he was saying all this, clearly enjoying the mix-up. I am so sorry, Sir Rimuru. AB ranked adventurer. Welcome to Glacier. He sounded panicked as he handed my card back to me, and Katarina stepped up next. With a wide smile, Katarina cheekily spoke up. Don't worry, I am a little lady, so there is no issue there. She took the chance to tease me, and it was a major blow to my ego. Cavil tried to cheer me up by saying that the guard didn't mean anything by it, but it hardly helped. I was considering changing my voice to a lower pitch, but it was a little late to do so. We had all successfully made it through the gate, and the massive city was laid out before us. The city itself was surprisingly advanced for what I was expecting after seeing Bloomond. It had glass windows for the shops everywhere, which were hard to come by in this world. With the castle situated on a lake in the middle of the city, it was an easy marker to use just in case you got lost, as well. The shops around us were stocked with high-quality goods, showing that there were many talented people here. Katarina, for her part, was unable to stay still. The moment we reached the marketplace, she was trying to run off and explore all the shops, just like before in Bloomond. Hey! Don't run off by yourself, Elin. I called out to her, nearly yelling the wrong name while doing so. After that incident, we all agreed to explore the city a little before finding somewhere to stay for the night. It was mostly to keep Katarina from wandering off later, but I also enjoyed myself. The lack of money stopped Katarina from buying everything she took a fancy to, thankfully. If it wasn't for that, I am sure she would have completely bought a few of the stores out. Sage, cat can get? Items make note of some that are wanted you. The list has already been started for future reference. Thanks. At IA as by have idea later. Least of present some to what will. After our rounds of the city to get familiar with it, we started looking for an inn to stay in. Cavil led us to the tourist section of the city, and there we found a wealth of inns to pick from. With me paying for a single room for Katarina and myself, the other three were left to sort out their own stay. Katarina was the one to suggest we stay in the same room, as it would save money. I was forced to agree, as I didn't know how long we would have to rent a room to sleep in, and I didn't want to waste what little money we had. It wasn't awkward in the least, as Katarina tended to sneak into my room at night anyway whenever she had a nightmare back home. She was able to relax when sleeping with me, knowing I would protect her from any harm. Katarina's POV. In the morning, we headed towards the center of the city. Cavil was leading the way once more as we made our way towards the guild headquarters. I was following along behind everyone when a clown appeared out of nowhere and handed me a balloon. Here you go, miss. You seem like a kind person who would look out for someone in need, the clown with an asymmetrical mask said before disappearing completely. Running to catch up with the others, I looked over the balloon and saw that it was a perfect copy of Dad's slime form, which weirded me out a little. I didn't think too much about it, as it must have been a coincidence. No human would know about us this far away, right? The second item that stopped me on our way was a poster I saw on a notice board. It showed a young girl with the same color hair as Dad. Does? It poster say that think what? It says The Monster Princess Rimuru, story by Rummel. So, I didn't it? Misread. Affirmative. You read it correctly. Can remember I Rummel. Sage? For it kill later, like make note please say to would you? Note added. I will remind you next time you see Rummel. You are best. I stole a flyer for the play and stored it away for later use as well. I'm not about to let Rummel get away with writing a story like that. Not without including me in it. My mood had soured considerably, but was quickly uplifted upon seeing the automatic doors of the guild. Those doors are so cool. I have never seen anything like them before. I was basically bouncing around in excitement while looking around. My little display didn't go unnoticed either, as many of the other people inside the lobby looked straight at me. Seeing all the attention, I moved towards Dad and grabbed onto his arm, not wanting to get separated. While I was confident that I would be able to beat every single person in the lobby, I didn't want to get into a fight either. Welcome. How can I help you today? The receptionist said. She sounded a lot more professional than the people we talked to in Bloomond. Dad walked up to the counter and placed the introduction letter in front of her. Hello, we are here to see the Grand Master. Here is our letter of introduction. The lady smiled and mentioned something about checking the letter before walking away. One of the people who were watching us from the side took this time to approach. What are little kids like you doing here? The stranger used a condescending tone while speaking to us. Frowning, I let out a sigh as the feeling of déjà vu washed over me. This feels familiar, Dad. Was it in Bloomond we faced something like this before? While the people were different, the situation felt the same, so I asked Dad over thought communication. Yeah, you are right. Let's have Cavill deal with it again. Right as Dad said this, Cavill stepped forward. Whoa. Grass, you reach B rank too. With that one comment, a number of other adventurers came over to talk with the trio upon noticing them. Dad and I settled onto a nearby couch to wait in the meantime. An attendant was kind enough to bring us some tea and juice while we waited, making me instantly like this place. I could see Dad questioning something while we waited, but to keep him from getting called lady again, I spoke up before he could. Cavill, how did you know this man was a B rank? Whoa, Grass shot back. What's your manners? That's Sir Cavill to you, Liel lady. You must be a beginner if you don't know how things work around here, huh? How about you show some respect to your elders? Hey, I wouldn't mouth off at Lady Elin like that. Cavill tried to correct the man, but was quickly cut off. You should discipline this girl some, Cavill. You know no one under B rank is allowed in here, and look at her attitude. You keep spoiling her like that, and she won't be able to fend for herself. Grass was going off on a rant without listening to others. I could only look at him in confusion, having paid attention to his words only once he suggested I get disciplined. Thankfully, Cavill was able to straighten the person out and promised to explain things to him later. It was at this point the woman from before walked up to us with a smile. Thank you for waiting. I was told that only Sir Rimuru and Lady Elin are allowed in, so if you would please follow me. The reactions to us walking away from the main area were priceless. What? The Grand Master is going to see them. You have to be kidding me. Those brats. The letter was real. Cavill took the chance to boast about us a little, even as we waved goodbye with the promise to see them later. The two of us were taken to a room with a teleportation circle on the ground, and upon activation, we were moved somewhere else a short distance away. The teleporter led us to an informal reception chamber, complete with couches, bookshelves, and a table. While it wasn't anything fancy, it was functional and cozy. I took a seat on a couch and settled into it, expecting a wait, while Dad looked around the room a little. I hope I can drop my mimic for a little while soon. Keeping it active all this time is starting to strain me. I looked over towards Dad while speaking, barely finishing before someone walked into the room. The person who walked in was a young man with black hair and eyes. He looked like he would be in his late teens at most as a human, but I had the feeling that wasn't the case. Curious about what type of person he was, I used Soul Sight, expecting to see what I always do, but was somehow partly blocked. Sage, can his my see skill? Soul through you. Yes, I could only read his outermost emotions. It is highly likely he has a unique skill. Please, Dad. I beacon communications don't if in no listened on. Tell thought. While I was trying to figure out what it meant that he blocked me, Dad and Yuki were exchanging greetings. Once they were done, he turned to me and offered his hand for a handshake. Nice to meet you as well, Katarina. I understand you are going by Elin while here, he said as I reached out to take his hand as well. The moment our hands met, my bracelet started to shine, each dragon its respective color, only dying down once I released his hand and stepped back. It's nice to meet you as well, Yuki. Stepping back, I settled onto the couch and tried to sit as far away from Yuki as possible. Dad, did you see that? I didn't care if our thought communications could be heard anymore, I needed to know if he saw my bracelet start glowing. No, what are you talking about? Came the confused response. I let out a little sigh, glad to see no one else noticed. Don't worry about it, it was nothing. Sage, Dad, I caused don't explain happened. Know that it was. What? Understood. I have started to examine what happened as well. Please we bracelet capable don't find if is no let me of. Something. Still the what you. The interaction and sudden activity by the bracelet had me on edge enough that I barely participated in the conversation. I knew I should have tried to make a better impression, but I was unable to focus with what had just happened. The two of them broke the ice easily even without me taking part, and the conversation moved on to more serious topics. I heard Yuki asking about Dad being a monster and forced myself to pay attention once more. So, Rimuru, you are a monster, right? At least that is how Fuse described you in his letter. So how did you get past the barrier, and why do you look like this? I also was told that Katarina here is a lycanthrope. Yuki got straight to the point, his curiosity clear as day, but there was some concern mixed in as well. I am a monster, a slime, to be exact. As for how I look, I can mimic anything I eat, and this mask helps to hide my aura, Dad said as he slowly took off Shizu's mask. The reaction was instantaneous. Yuki was quick to put the pieces together and realized that Dad had eaten Shizu's body to take on her form. Once Yuki reached this conclusion, he wasted no time in lashing out at us. He sent a kick towards Dad at a speed that no human had the right to move at, only to be blocked by Dad's kick meeting him halfway. The shockwave from the two kicks split the table in two underneath their legs and made a mess of the rest of the room. Seeing the chance to test something out, I covered my hand in magic and concealed the magic from the naked eye. The punch I launched at him wasn't aimed to kill, but it would hurt regardless. I aimed for his side, and my fist was caught before it could land. Jumping away quickly, I analyzed Yuki's hand that was still held out after catching my fist and saw no damage at all. It took everything I had not to call him out on his lies, managing to keep a straight face as things calmed down. I can deactivated don't everything is it magic no skill, that the there though. Unique used, I relayed this to Sage so she could use the information later. I didn't get a response from her, but the brief change of expression from Dad was enough to tell me she had heard it. With all three of us reaching an uneven calm, Dad set about explaining everything that had happened since he was reincarnated. He didn't give the full story, but I still learned things I hadn't known before. Dad, can I drop my mimic now? Yuki, we can trust everyone here, right? I wanted to be a little selfish, even if I knew we couldn't trust Yuki in the first place. Yeah, go ahead. Yep, nothing spoken about here will leave this room. With an exaggerated gasp, my features started to change before eventually settling back into my normal lycanthrope form. That feels so much better. Who knew mimicking another form for so long would be so hard? My comment earned a couple of laughs from them as I leaned back into the soft couch. Dad and Yuki started to talk about manga suddenly, or as Uncle calls them, sacred texts. I wasn't sure why they were both so interested in the picture books, but I wasn't going to stop them if it helped form bonds. I was curious enough to ask about why they liked the manga, though. So, Dad, is it just all men who like these picture books? Uncle likes them as well. Picture books. You wound me. Rimuru. Have you not taught her the wonders of manga yet? I'll pass. I have my proper books to read, after all, and they are far more interesting. I wasn't sure what they were so worked up over, but it seemed important at least. Dad gave a few fake coughs before speaking up again, this time much calmer than before. Manga isn't just a picture book. It's a book that puts normal descriptions into images for readers to enjoy while progressing the story. I am sure if you read some, you will understand. I promised to give it a try sometime just so they would stop pestering me about it. They wouldn't let up for 10 minutes while telling me how great manga was. Once the two of them were happy that I would try reading some, they went back to their own conversation. This conversation consisted of Dad making manga for Yuki to read later based off his own memories. Yuki provided the paper for the manga to be copied onto as well. I managed to sneak a stack of paper while neither of them paid attention for my own personal use later. It would certainly be better quality to draw maps and write notes on. Before I knew it, time had flown past, and it was already time for lunch. Yuki was kind enough to provide us with food while Dad and he continued to talk while eating. The conversation took another turn over food as the manga was forgotten for the time being. So, Rimuru, you came to meet me because Shishu said we were both from Japan. Was there any other motive, though? You did risk yourself by coming here, after all. Yuki brought the conversation to a more serious topic after the two of them goofed around for so long. I didn't want Dad to sidetrack us into more meaningless topics, so I spoke up in his stead. We came to save Miss Shishu's students. If possible, I would like to make a couple of requests along those lines, too. She is right. I have built a town that we can have fun and live peacefully in, but I want to fulfill Shishu's last request. She regretted not being able to save the children herself, so I promised to do it for her, Dad answered as well, confirming what I had said. Miss Shishu worried deeply about those kids. If you can help them, I would be grateful. As for your requests, I can't promise anything, but I am willing to hear them out at least. Yuki shifted his attention towards me at the last part, giving me his full attention. The first is to let us save them. The second. I don't really know how to ask this. I paused for a moment trying to gather my thoughts, Yuki being kind enough to wait for me. I want to be with Dad. Maybe I could be his assistant? Though I don't know anything that would let me help teach. It was the moment of truth. If Yuki accepted the request to let Dad help save the children, but not mine to stay with him, then I would have to go home. While it was a promise I felt good about at the time, I found myself extremely nervous now that the time was upon us. I didn't want to go home after reaching this city and looking around a little yesterday. I also didn't want to break the promise if my request was denied, as it would mean Dad couldn't trust me in the future. My fate effectively rested in Yuki's hands at this point, and I knew the worry I was feeling could be seen by both him and Dad. The silence carried on for far too long before Yuki finally broke it. I will set you up as a teacher at the school, Rimuru. As for you, Katarina. I'm sorry, but I don't think you being an assistant will be possible. I was on the verge of crying, devastated that I wouldn't be able to stick around. I wasn't ready to leave the human lands when I had barely gotten to explore anything at all. Most of my time was spent in meetings that would last forever, and that was a terrible impression to leave with. But Yuki spoke up again, instantly catching my attention. "You can be one of Rimuru's students if you like." "Yes. That will work, thank you." Relief washed over me as I heard his words. I wouldn't have to leave after all. Collapsing back into the couch, I let out a relieved sigh. Dad and Yuki spent a good amount of time talking out the details while I did my best to recover from such an emotional rollercoaster. It was already early evening by the time we stepped out of the room and found Cavil and the others waiting for us. We quickly explained the situation about us starting at the school in a week and that they were free to go back to Bloomond. Dad also offered to buy us all food due to the meeting taking far longer than any of us anticipated. The next morning, we sent the trio off back to Bloomond, complete with the wolf wagon as a present along with some new gear. They would have to use horses to pull it back, but they should still be able to ride in comfort. I told them to make sure to advertise the wagon as well if they got the chance, so I could earn some money off the profits later. Third-person POV. Those stupid humans. Now I must go and deliver a personal message to that fool. Air walked through the castle of the Void Primordial. The room she walked into was occupied by two young kids. The two kids were the twins, Nox and Lilith. While Nox resembled Air with void black hair and violet eyes, Lilith was the opposite, with white hair and light blue eyes. Unlike the other demon lineages, the void demons followed different norms when it came to their dominant colors. Instead of a single color, there were four. A void demon's hair was either black or white, while their eyes were either violet or light blue. It could be a combination of either as well, meaning they were the ones with the most diversity. Nox, Lilith, I have a job for the two of you. Gather everyone, and tell Testarossa that I wish to meet with her. Air spoke with a commanding tone. The young boy, Nox, spoke up. Everyone? It's rare for the entire Void lineage to gather in a single place since Lady Veliona disappeared. He said this with a playful spark in his eyes. Lilith, a young girl, looked on disapprovingly at her brother's antics, but said nothing. She knew it wasn't her place to question Air's orders. The Void demons were known for their two extremes. They were either completely serious, or they were playful and innocent. Every demon in the lineage held the capacity for both, and one would never know when they would switch. Air was the second in command, right behind the Void Primordial, Veliona. Behind her were the twins, Nox and Lilith, and as such, the three commanded fear and respect in the underworld. The only ones able to stand up against them were the Primordials. Not even their closest aides could put up a fight in a one-on-one. Yes, everyone. If they ask why, inform them that we will be able to play in the Cardinal world soon. If they refuse, kill them. Air knew that the offer to leave the underworld would be enough to gather all 250 void demons, so killing wouldn't be needed. You have just under a year to complete this task. With the order given, Nox and Lilith stood up, grinning widely at the idea of leaving. As they walked out the door, Air said one last thing that would make sure their task was completed on time. She promised they would be the first to reunite with their mistress. While the Void Demons were by far the smallest lineage of them all, their full force was nothing to ignore. The fact that all of them were gathering in a single place meant something world-changing was about to happen. Unfortunately, or maybe fortunately, the Cardinal world didn't know what had been set into motion. The knowledge would only cause widespread chaos if humans learned about the gathering. The collective name for the Void Demons in human history was Chaos Demons. Each time they appeared in the world, chaos would soon follow. Chapter 19 New Friends. Katarina's POV. Waking up. I found myself hugging Dad tightly. The nightmare faded as I woke up and realized where I was. With my tears staining the pillow, the sense of loss and sadness lingered as I shook the nightmare off. Taking a deep breath, I calmed myself down, just in time for Dad to wake up. Wiping away the tears quickly, I slipped out of bed before he could see me. I didn't want him to worry for no reason as I quickly made myself presentable and shook off the sadness from before. Morning, Dad. Sorry if I took most of the blanket. I sat down at the desk in the room as he woke up. He gave a cute stretch before sitting up on the bed. It's fine, temperature doesn't bother me anyway. The room we were in was modest, but that was expected seeing as it was a dorm for teachers. It was only slightly below the room we stayed at for the first night, and it was free, too. Dad would start teaching in about a week, meaning I would have to stay here with him for the time being. Once I was officially enrolled in the class, I would move to the girls' dorm for those in the class. On the bonus side, with us not having to pay for a room every night, we had some extra money to spend on ourselves. With the next few days to ourselves, we decided to spend today looking around the town and buying stuff we wanted for the room. We spent until lunch going around the shops exploring, while Dad bought stuff he wanted for the room. I managed to pick out a couple of items as well, but decided to wait on most of my shopping until I got to my own room. While we were eating, a thought came to mind that I wanted to sort out quickly. Hey, Dad? Do you think the school will let me put together a forge on the campus? True, you haven't been able to practice smithing since we left home, have you? I doubt they will let you build it on campus, but maybe we can find someone who will let you work in theirs. He thought out loud, voicing what I was hoping not to hear. Maybe we can look around for that today, then? I don't want to get rusty. That is the phrase, right? I did my best to lighten the mood with a soft laugh. With a bright smile, Dad gave a quick nod. Sure, perhaps we can meet Shin, too. Kaijin said he lived in Inglacia, right? Yup. With each smith we visited, my mood became worse. No matter who we asked or the reassurances we gave, every single person rejected us. I walked up to the last smith we could find in the city, hope already gone. Hello? I called out as a man banged away at a piece of metal. After a few minutes, he looked up after placing the item he was working on back in the forge. Oh? What can I do for the two of you? The man seemed nice enough, so I stepped forward. Well, you see, I will be going to the Freedom Academy for a while, but I also want to continue practicing smithing. I don't have anywhere to work while in this city. I was hoping I could find someone that would let me borrow space to work in. With a raised eyebrow, the man responded. I'm sorry, but I'm not looking for a new apprentice right now. I also don't want to be liable for any injuries you might get while I can't watch you. Opening my mouth to argue, I was stopped when Dad placed a hand on my shoulder. Sorry to bother you, we will let you continue working. Dad said this so calmly that I wanted to scream in frustration. I let out a sigh as we walked away, defeated. I'll have to ask the school if I can build a forge and stuff on the grounds. That guy was my last chance, and we didn't even find Shin. We will figure something out. Now that we don't have anyone else to ask. I have a question for you. What have you been looking towards this entire time? He was clearly curious about why I had been looking towards the city walls as we walked around. I don't know. I feel drawn towards that direction for some reason. Can we go find out what it is now that we are free? The change in topic was what I needed to lift my spirits. Sage, be configured going? Out should we wear you? Based on the directions you have been looking, the place in question is a short distance outside the city. Thanks. Now aimlessly. Around have to wander we won't. Outside the city walls, huh? Well, we have some time before dinner. Dad was quick to pick up on the conversation. With little fanfare, we headed out the gates we came into the city from and started walking along the wall. While we knew the general area, we would still have to look around for anything out of the ordinary. After half an hour, we found a shop that would be hard to find if you didn't know where to look for it. Out of sight of the road and hidden by trees, it was likely to only be found by those who knew where to look. I became curious about the shop and rushed over to the door. This is a strange place for a shop. No one would find it if they didn't already know it was here. That is true. Unfortunately, it's closed right now, so we can't go in, Dad said as he caught up to me a minute later. Looking around, I frowned softly. It sounded like someone was fighting nearby, but I didn't see anyone, and there wouldn't be monsters so close to the city. Dad, do you hear someone fighting? What? No. I don't hear anything. He looked at me like I was crazy for a second. Sighing, I started to walk around the shop to locate the sound. What I found was nothing short of shocking. Behind the shop lay a massive circle on the ground, inlaid with magic. A massive dome-like barrier stretched up high into the sky. In the middle of the area were two people fighting it out. The shockwaves were enough to make me wary about getting any closer, lest I get hit by one. Cat, what are you looking at? There is nothing here but a big circle on the ground. Dad stepped past me towards the circle as he spoke. Jumping forward, I dragged him back away from the edge. Can you not see it? Not hear it? There are two people fighting in the circle and they are incredibly powerful. Sage, back me up here. With us safely away from the barrier, Sage spoke up. Unable to see the people through Master's eyes. Can see them through Cat's. Reason, unknown. Glad that I wasn't going completely crazy, I looked back towards the people to see they had stopped fighting. It looks like they noticed us. As they walked out of the barrier, Dad jumped back in shock, letting me know he could now see them as well. One was a human man, while the other was an elf woman. Unable to tell anything outside of that, I waited to see if either of them would speak up. It's rare to get visitors this late in the day, and even more so for someone to be able to see us. The man spoke up while looking towards me with a soft smile. I took a step back towards Dad before speaking myself. Sorry if we disturbed you. I felt drawn here, and was curious about the reason why. With a soft laugh, the woman raised her hand showing off a dragon-shaped bracelet of black and light blue. This is probably the reason. Your own bracelet most likely recognized one of its own nearby. Wait, how can you see it? It's hidden right now. I was shocked that the woman so casually said I had a bracelet myself when it was concealed. Is it not obvious? We can see it for the same reason you could see us. The bracelets call to one another, letting the wearer see them regardless of whether they are hidden or not. Don't worry, no one else will be able to see it without a bracelet of their own. With a smile, the man raised his own hand to show off a matching bracelet to the woman's. Dad picked this time to let out a soft hum. It sounds like we have a lot to learn about the bracelet. It wasn't explained well when Kat got it as a present. I'm Rimuru, by the way, and this is my daughter Katarina. Apologies, how rude of us. I'm Shin, and this is my wife Shni. Why don't we head inside to talk some more? Shin pointed towards the shop behind us and started walking towards it. For a second, I was stunned as Shin told us his name. Wait! Shin? As in the person who taught Kaijin. With a hearty laugh, Shin turned back towards me. The one and the same. I knew you were good people because of the bracelet, but if Kaijin knows you as well, then that only confirms it. How has he been? He works back home in Tempest. He has been a huge help with improving our nation along with Vesta, I happily replied while running to catch up. Shni was the next one to be curious. Tempest? I seem to recall a nation by that name being made in the Jura forest, a nation of monsters. The casual comment made both Dad and me stop in our tracks, worried that they might suddenly attack. The tension was broken as a young lycanthrope woman ran out from the back door of the shop towards us. Hey, dinner will be ready soon, the woman shouted. The appearance of a lycanthrope helped me to relax a little, as it was clear they didn't have any prejudice against demi-humans. We didn't have to wait long to get confirmation on this fact either. Shin noticed that we stopped and only raised an eyebrow. Don't worry, we aren't hostile. We already know you are a slime and shadow panther, after all. His smile was enough to set me at ease, even if Dad only became more cautious. Dad, we can trust them. If they wanted us dead, they could have already killed us easily. I pulled on his hand towards the waiting door. The scent from inside smelled divine, and everyone else seemed completely relaxed. While I couldn't see deep into their souls with soul sight, I could still see that they held no hostile intentions. It also was clear that they were letting me see that, instead of blocking my skill completely. As we all settled down around a table, the young lycanthrope, who went by the name of Yuzuha, brought food for everyone. She took a seat once we all had a plate. Spending a minute enjoying the food, I marveled at how amazing it tasted. So good. These were the only words I spoke as I continued to eat. With a smile, Shin looked over towards me. I'm glad you like it. Seeing as you don't know a whole lot about the bracelet you are wearing, do you want me to fill you in? If so, tell me what you know about it so far, and who gave it to you. Setting down my fork, I looked back toward Shin and took a deep breath before explaining. I started from the beginning, explaining how it was sent as a present for Christmas. We knew that the bracelet could not be removed, but could conceal itself and act as if it wasn't there. This held true even if tighter clothing was placed on top of it. My knowledge was limited, to say the least. I ended by explaining how the bracelet glowed when talking with Yuki. I didn't know what it meant, but thought it was important enough to bring up. The reaction Shin and Shni made when I said as much only confirmed that fact. The brief flash of anger that showed in their eyes was enough to worry me before they returned to normal. Shin also asked what I knew about the true dragon family. I responded with what Uncle Veldora had told me before, knowing he left a lot of information out. Once I finally finished speaking, Shin spoke up again. Less than I hoped, but more than I expected. Let's start with the true dragon family, but first, hold your bracelet out. Curious enough about what they were going to tell us, I put my hand out so the bracelet was over the table. A second later, both Shin and Shni grasped my hand, and all three bracelets started to glow softly. Unlike before with Yuki, the glow felt comforting instead of threatening. Shni pulled her hand back after the glow faded. There we go. Our bracelets are connected now, so you can contact us whenever you want. You must focus on the person you wish to speak with, and start speaking either in your mind or out loud. To start with, the ones who gave you your bracelet are the true Dragon Velzard and Demon Lord Guy. The fact the bracelet accepted you is proof that you are the reincarnation of who they thought. Shin continued speaking, confirming what we already expected. The mention of me being a reincarnation spiked Dad's interest. Mind telling us who she is a reincarnation of? Millim claims to be her sister, but refused to say who she is. Well, you see, we can't. It's not that we don't want to tell the two of you, but we were ordered not to by Katarina. Shni was the one to answer this time, looking down as if disappointed in herself. I couldn't help but to pout at this answer. Not this again. Uncle said the same thing. Why does past me have to be so difficult? If you figure out who you were before by yourself and remember your past, then that will free us up to speak about it more. In the meantime, about those three dragons you didn't name, while their true names were lost, they still have names you can use. The Void Empress, Valia. The Void Princess, Veliona. The Spirit Empress, Velika. Those aren't their real names, but aliases they used that matched the names of the other true dragons. It was a way for them to act as both a force of nature and a common person. People generally feared true dragons, so they wanted a way to blend in with normal people. With the last three true dragons having names for us to use now, the topic moved on to the bracelets. To break everything down into simple terms, the bracelet had several main functions. The first was to allow others to easily recognize who was either in the family or trusted by the family. Being chosen to receive one granted you powerful allies and the trust of many. The criteria were never fleshed out by humans on how people were chosen. The only thing they did know was that they were incredibly strict. The truth was much simpler than that, though it was based on the whims of the Void Princess. She was an amazing judge of character and, as the creator, chose who received them. The multi-dragon bracelet, like what I had, indicated one was part of the family by blood or marriage. The single dragon bracelet was a sign of the person being a close friend. The bracelet color indicated who gave it to them and who they were closest with. The second was to be able to contact others who had one, but only if you had met them before. The main reason for this was to encourage meeting others connected to the family. The true dragons thrived on the strong bond they built with one another, and that was true for friends as well. The third was to act as a warning against malintent. The bracelet glows whenever it senses something intending to harm the wearer. The list of things it reacts to mostly concerns abnormal conditions, but there are other triggers as well. Lastly, it was also mentioned that because my bracelet accepted me, it was undeniable proof of who I am. The bracelet's connected to the soul of the person who first wears it, and will not work for anyone else. The risk I didn't know about when putting it on for the first time was that if it didn't accept me, I could have died. Shin did say that would have only happened if my soul was malicious in nature, though. There are other functions that we haven't told you about. It would be best for you to figure those out by yourself. What we have told you so far is enough for you to understand the basic uses the bracelet has, Shni said as they wrapped up the explanation. At least we know Kat is part of the direct family. That means she was either someone represented by the bracelet itself, or married into the family, right? Dad asked, already trying to piece everything together. Shin had a smile that bordered on a smirk at this question before vaguely answering. That is for you to find out. As Dad and the others continued to talk about other subjects, I started to wander around the place a little. I naturally got permission first. Rimuru's POV. And off she goes. My apologies in advance if she does anything to upset you while looking around. I watched as Katarina walked off further into the house after getting permission. Shni looked towards the direction she disappeared with a smile on her lips. Don't worry about it. She has always been curious by nature. We don't know where she gets it from, but it's part of who she is. Mind if I ask how old she is now? With the chaos now happening in the world, I wouldn't be surprised if she was only born recently. Shin set cups of tea in front of each of us and settled back into his own seat as he spoke. The sudden question threw me off guard. To be honest, I don't know. She was born in a place of darkness, making it impossible to tell time there. The closest guess I have for her age is around 1 year old, due to the lack of development of her intrinsic skills. With a soft giggle, Yuzuha shook her head. Honestly, it's like wherever she goes, chaos follows, even when she does her best not to cause chaos. Chaos can be both good and bad. At least Katarina's form of chaos is breaking the status quo instead of outright destruction. Shin was quick to correct any misunderstanding. Shni sat back and enjoyed the small banter between the two before stepping in to add her own thoughts. That is true. It reminds me of when we were taken in by the true dragon family. It was after the stigma around high humans started, thanks to Guy. I couldn't believe what I was hearing as she spoke. Wait, how long have you been around if you speak of events that happened so far into the past? Honestly? We lost count. Both Shni and I are true heroes, meaning we are effectively immortal. Yuzuha is an element tail, which grants her an incredibly long life already. She was made immortal after we were accepted by the family, Shin explained before taking a sip of his tea. The explanation made sense. If you had lived for thousands of years, age would lose its meaning completely. I would have to consider that fact myself in the far-flung future, as I would never die by natural means. I wanted to get to know them better, so I continued to ask questions about their life. It turned out that Shin was from Japan, while Shni and Yuzuha were from a different world. The way Shin explained it was that him appearing here was the second time he got moved to a new world. In the early days after appearing in the Cardinal world, they wandered around creating a name for themselves. By slaying monsters that threatened towns, their fame steadily grew. High humans were looked down upon at that time thanks to Guy's destruction of 2 nations. Shin had to hide that he was a high human and pretended to be a normal human while they explored. After several years of traveling, they were approached by a member of the true dragon family. After a duel, they offered to be friends, securing their place in history. In the current day, they had taken a step back from the spotlight to allow a new generation to flourish. The result of doing so meant they had been forgotten to time. As I learned their story, I came to trust them more, as they did not seem like bad people, Quite the opposite, in fact, as they went out of their way to help those in need without asking for anything in return. It sounds like you have been through a lot. I would like to make a request, if you don't mind. I didn't want to overstep, but it was also too good an opportunity to pass up. By this time in the conversation, the tea had been finished, so Shni started to collect the glasses. Ask away. You have gained our trust, and as such, we are more than willing to help you. Would it be possible for you to train Katarina and myself in fighting? With your many years of experience, I am sure you would be able to help us improve. I placed the request out there, and it was out of my hands whether it would be accepted or not. With a raised eyebrow, Shin studied me for a second before answering. We would be happy to train the two of you. It will be good for you to learn from someone who doesn't use only brute strength like Milim. I had a feeling I was walking into training hell once more, but the deal was already struck. We can figure a schedule out another time, then. First, we need to get settled into the routine of life here in Inglacia. I felt good about the connection we had formed here. While a single meeting wasn't enough to completely judge their character, I felt like we could trust them. The interactions going forward would help solidify the trust we had built up today. It's getting close to dark, so we better head back before they close the gate on us. I noticed the sun resting above the horizon outside the window and knew our time was up for now. Shin took a peek out the window behind him and nodded. I'll find Katarina, then. Katarina's POV. Getting distracted by looking at everything, I didn't notice Shin coming to find me after a while. I had picked up a book I recognized as the same one I got for Christmas to look at it. Flipping to the front of the cover, I found that it was the second copy of 3. Still as curious as ever, I see. I'm glad that losing your memories hasn't dulled that side of you. Shin was leaning on the doorframe to the room I was standing in as I turned around to locate the voice. I slowly put the book back before responding. Of course. You don't learn without being curious. Speaking of which, do you know where the last book is? I said as I pointed towards the book I had put away. You speak as if you know where a second one is, came the response. Scratching the back of my head a little in embarrassment, I pulled my copy out from my stomach. It's right here, so I kind of do know where it is. With a shake of his head, he smiled at me. So, they gave you that as well? To answer your question, it is most likely in the Dworgen treasury somewhere. We gave it to the first king, Guren Dworgo, as he was an avid craftsman like myself. Also, before you ask, I am the Dark Blacksmith. Just don't tell anyone else that. Deal. If you are a blacksmith, does that mean you have a workspace? I have been looking for somewhere to practice while in Inglacia, but no one in the city would accept me. With my interest piqued, I couldn't let the opportunity slip past. With a warm smile, Shin nodded. I would be more than happy to let you practice here. I can even teach you in person if you like. My eyes went wide at the offer to be able to learn from the person who wrote the book himself. I would love that. Thank you so much. I could feel tears of happiness and relief building up, but not falling. I no longer had to worry about finding a place to continue plying my craft. Emotional as ever, I see, he said, his smile growing warmer. Come on now. Rimuru said he wanted to head back before it got any darker, so I came to get you. Okay. We can figure out when I will have free time to come back and practice crafting later, then, I answered, eager to return later. As we stepped out into the night air, the sun was already dipping below the horizon. The gates to the city would be closing soon, meaning we had to hurry if we wanted to get inside on time. Thankfully, Shin's shop wasn't far from the gate, just out of sight from the road. Having successfully made it back inside, Dad and I slowed our pace as we headed to the dorm we were staying in. I brought up the fact that Shin was willing to let me use his forge, and Dad responded positively, saying we would work out a routine for it later. The first task was to get settled down in the city. After speaking with Shin, Shni, and Yuzuha, Dad had concluded that they weren't bad people. He was even considering letting me go there alone to train with Shin, after a few more visits together. While Dad trusted them already, the trust he had wasn't quite at the level of letting his daughter go there alone. That is how he phrased it, at least, even though Sage would be able to keep tabs on me when he isn't around. Our conversation ended as we walked into the dorm we were sharing. Instantly falling onto the bed, I passed out without another sound. The day was both long and mentally draining. I had learned a lot of new information, but still not all of what I wanted to. The next few days we spent in the library, as Dad wanted to learn magic from the tomes there. I was getting the information from Sage, so I didn't have to worry about looking through all the books as well, thankfully. I found myself gravitating towards the history section of the library instead. I wanted to look for more information that might give me hints as to who I was and the greater world around us as well. The books I looked at were locked behind the deeper parts of the library. Only B-ranked adventurers and above could travel into the library that far, making me glad for the test we took in Bluemond. The books in the area were extraordinarily old, coming from ruins and cities that fell to the march of time. The few books I found that were useful covered the same information and confirmed each other. They covered the main events of the world, such as the rise of Guy Crimson as a demon lord, the death of Veldanava, Milim's rampage, and the fight between Valia and her daughters. Some events I didn't know about were centered around the existence of an unknown entity. The only information the books provided was that they thrived on destruction. They would destroy a country and disappear completely afterwards, only to reappear years or centuries later. Each event could be labeled as a turning point in the world's history. Some of the information didn't make sense at all. The book said Veldanava was killed by his sister Valia, which didn't sound right to me. The rest of the information I gathered sounded believable enough, though. It wasn't until the last day at the library that I found a book that sparked my interest the most. It was a book covering the true dragon family. It had a lot of gaps in the information, and many guesses as well, but it was the only book I found like it. The book listed a lot of information I already knew, such as the names, or aliases, of the true dragons and their partners. It was strange that I had never heard of Valia having a partner before. The book said she didn't, but that only made me question how she had 2 daughters without one. The part that caught my interest the most was the mention of the primordial demons. It claimed that the 7 primordial demons served under Valia herself, with the 8th being her daughter. Veliona was recognized by the world as the void primordial demon. To balance the shift in power, her twin Velika was recognized as the 8th primordial angel. I didn't know how a true dragon could be recognized as a demon or angel, but that was what the book said. The mention of the world didn't specify if it meant the world as in the voice of the world, or the world as in the inhabitants. There was room for interpretation with the way it was phrased. I planned to ask Shin more about it when we met up next, as if it were true, that would be one more link to investigate. The true dragon family and associates continued to grow as I found more information on them. I knew I could remove the names of those who were still alive from who I was in the past. It was obvious that if someone were alive now, then that meant they couldn't be me. With this information in mind, I headed off to find Dad in the maze of bookshelves. Even with the new information, my choices for who I was, or rather, were still limited to 5 people. Those people were the 4 dead true dragons, and Valia's unmentioned partner. There was always the chance that there were more people in the family that I didn't know about as well. I had to remember that so I wouldn't jump to conclusions. The easiest way to solve this mystery was if I could get my memories back. That said, without an idea of how to do that, I couldn't continue with that thought. With our time before we started at the school gone, my focus would have to shift to settling into our new roles. I went through all the books I could find in the library, and it amounted to almost nothing new. I was back at square one with figuring out my past. I was determined to figure out who I was, even if no one seemed willing to help me do so. Until such a time as I could learn more information. I decided to enjoy my time here instead. New adventures were ready for the taking, with both school life and training with Shin and Shani. Chapter 20. Starting at school. It was finally time to start teaching. Yesterday was spent with Yuki talking about all the details that I would need to know going forward. The children were summons, just like Shishu, and if I didn't find a way to save them within about a year, they would die. At such a young age, they were unable to gain a unique skill upon crossing between the worlds. As the energy gained from crossing over wasn't used to gain a skill, it rampaged inside of their bodies instead. If the energy was left unchecked, anyone who was summoned under the age of 10 would die within 5 years. It was a tragic fate for anyone, and that someone could be so cruel as to place it on children was unthinkable. I could understand the reasoning of wanting a hero to help safeguard humanity. The understanding didn't mean I condoned the methods used. Humans were naturally weak in this world when compared to monsters. Those who were brought over to this world started strong, making them a good choice to combat the threat in place of weak humans. With the inherent strength that comes with being summoned, a single person could match what armies could do. People decided that it was easier to summon a single person and let them take the weight of everything. The cost of one stranger's freedom was weighed, and found to be worth less than those born here. While saving the children here would solve Shishu's regret, I knew that pressure had to be placed on those performing the rituals. If the people behind these deeds weren't stopped, then nothing would change. It would be a long-term goal, but one I planned to follow through on until the end. For now, I needed to focus on finding a way to save the kids that were going to be under me. I was given the role of an advisor instead of a teacher, meaning I would be living with the kids and watching over them. I would teach the subjects I knew, and would let the other teachers take the ones I didn't. Katarina was placed in the class as a student, as Yuki promised the first time we met him. I hoped that she would help me get closer to them as a fellow student, instead of someone who was above them. She was looking forward to seeing what school life was like as well. Walking down the hallway with Katarina and the vice principal, the school around us was quiet. The only noise was that of our steps and voices. Every kid was already in their classrooms being taught as we walked towards the door to Class S. "Kat, why don't you run ahead and say hi to the kids? We will be there shortly," I suggested, giving her a gentle push for encouragement. She looked nervous about the suggestion, but sped up after the gentle push. We weren't far from the classroom as it was, so I would be catching up to her in a minute. I was hoping that she could get over how shy she is around new people by doing this. "I would love to put my trust in you, Sir Rimuru," the vice principal commented as we walked. "It's not every day the chairman recommends someone to the school. That said, these kids are too much even for rank B adventurers, and you are practically a child yourself, aren't you? No one will hold it against you if you can't handle them. It's fine. You don't need to worry about me. Are you sure? If you find they're too much for you, please let me know as soon as possible." With the door to the classroom in sight, we watched as Katarina knocked, before slowly opening it. Half a second later, the door slammed closed, and she ran back towards us to hide behind me. Right before the door closed, I caught a glimpse of an orange glow, which looked suspiciously like fire. I wasn't sure what happened, but it was enough to cause Katarina to retreat towards me and hide. She was strong enough to fight rank A monsters in the forest, so I couldn't imagine what would scare her enough to flee. With a soft chuckle, I gave Katarina a pat on the head. "So much for you being less shy around people your own age." Moments later, a kid came out of the classroom holding a flaming sword. He seemed ready to attack us, but faltered upon seeing Katarina hiding behind me. Katarina mumbled something about being unable to fight back against humans and ducked further behind me. I let out an annoyed sigh as I walked forward. "I would greatly appreciate it if you didn't scare my daughter by attacking her." "Whatever." The single word was all he spoke before walking back into the classroom and slamming the door behind him. With a shake of my head, I waved goodbye to the vice principal and walked up to the door, ready for anything. Katarina tried to stop me for a moment before finally giving up and accepting that we had to go inside. I wasn't attacked as I walked inside, the boy from earlier having lost interest. "Hello, I am your new advisor starting today. This is my daughter Katarina, who will be joining this class as a new student as well." "Ken, you attacked the wrong person. You couldn't even hit the person you went for. That was a weak finisher. They didn't care that they had just attacked someone and could have seriously hurt them. For being on death's door, they were extremely energetic. Looking at the kids, they returned the look with pure hostility towards me. A couple of them softened their gaze when looking towards Katarina afterwards. I gently pulled Katarina out from behind me and told her to take a seat so class could start. I didn't know how I would get through to the kids, as they didn't want to have anything to do with me in the first place. She took a seat as far away from everyone else as possible, their earlier reactions not helping to calm her down. With everyone at least in the room, I started calling their names. Kenya Misoki, Ryota Sekiguchi, Gail Gibson, Alice Rondo, Chloe Orbit, KatarinaTempest. The kids refused to speak up as I called their names. The act made me realize how difficult this job would be. Katarina, for her part, looked around confused, unsure of what she was supposed to do. It was to be expected, as she had never been in a classroom setting like this before. Ronga. With a simple call from me, Ronga appeared behind the kids and used intimidation. When I call your name, you are supposed to say here. So, let us try this again. Hey, get this dog, is that a wolf? Get it out of here. Ken, are you okay? I'll behave. This time, when their names were called, each one answered in a shaky voice. Katarina, on the other hand, was holding back a laugh as Ronga got back at the kids for her. My name is Ronga, boy. You should listen to what adults are telling you. Ronga seems to be a major hit with the kids. At least they are willing to listen now instead of being openly hostile. Such were my true thoughts as I tried to figure out what I could do to help save them. Right. Now with that done, because you all seem to dislike me, we will be taking a test. The outrage was instantaneous. The complaints ranged from me not having taught anything to other teachers letting them do whatever they wanted. Chloe even gave the simple fact that she hated tests as a reason. Their thoughts were that if they were just going to die soon anyway, there was no reason to study. With there being a clear misunderstanding, I quickly spoke up to correct it. I called it a test, but it's really a game. You will each have 10 minutes to beat me in a fight. If you win, you can do whatever you want, but if I win, you must call me teacher from now on. You're on. I'll beat you easily. That's it. 10 minutes. Their doubt was clear as day, but I wasn't going to let up on this. I'll give you each an hour if you want. So long as you don't sick that dog on me. I won't need 10 minutes. Promise. You will each be taking me on alone, though, no helping each other out. As we left the classroom, Katarina ran up to me and grabbed hold of my arm, staying close as we walked. It took a couple minutes to make it to the gymnasium, which would be perfect for the mock battle. Geez, she is so clingy. Well, you didn't welcome her with open arms. You attacked her at first sight, so of course she is scared of you. She might look around our age, but she is clearly uncomfortable. You should cut her some slack, Ken. The walk was uneventful, with the others talking behind us. I overheard the conversation and was glad to hear at least a couple of the kids standing up for me against Ken. As we came up to the gymnasium, Kenya was the first to try and beat Dad. I knew it would be impossible for him to do so. If I couldn't beat him with almost a year of training, then there was no way any of the kids here would be able to. Dad handed me an hourglass that was set for 10 minutes as Kenya stepped up for his chance. Dad allowed him to use a sword off the nearby racks, and the match began. The entire fight was anticlimactic. Kenya had no form when it came to using a sword, meaning he was swinging it around wildly hoping to hit something. Halfway through the allotted time, he ignited his sword and started throwing fire everywhere. Hey! Don't burn down the building! I shouted in frustration as I quickly established a barrier around the two fighters. The flames weren't that strong, but I still didn't want to get scolded if we burned the place down. With the magic contained and Kenya not listening to the advice Dad was giving, the time ran out without a single strike landing. Chloe was second, and she was a lot more impressive than Kenya. She cast magic that trapped Dad inside of a water cocoon, which spun fast enough to cut anything it touched. Give up now and I will let you out. If you don't, you will die. The magic was too weak to affect him, though. Dad walked out of the water cocoon as if it wasn't there. With him patting Chloe on the head, she instantly gave up and admitted defeat. I was a little surprised when the other kids ran over to her to see if she was okay. They showed enough care that I knew they weren't inherently bad, which helped me reassess what I thought of them. With two of them being defeated, Gale walked up next for his turn. At this point, it was clear that the fight wouldn't be easy, so he started to pull all his magic together into a single attack. Don't complain if this kills you, Gale said right before firing off a magic bullet made of earth. With the activation of Gluttony, the magic bullet disappeared instantly. Gale, seeing this, gave up as well, having used most of his magicules on the single attack. Ryota was the next one to try, and the results were much the same as Kenya's. He activated some type of berserker move and lost his rational thinking after Kenya egged him on. With his movements being little better than a wild beast's, Dad was able to dodge him without effort. Alice was the last challenger to step up. Step back, let me show you how it's done. At this point, there was a sizable crowd that had come to watch the mock fights. The people who were watching made several comments on how well Dad was handling the kids, showing admiration at his skill. Alice reached behind her as she stepped forward and threw out stuffed animals. The stuffed animals started to fly around and attack while Alice stood back and watched. I found her skill to be an interesting one, acting like telekinesis from what little I understood of the concept. The skill itself could be dangerous if used with the right materials, but as it stood, there wasn't much of a threat. With the timer running out once more, my fellow classmates looked disappointed. After talking among themselves for a moment, they turned towards me. Alice walked over to where I was sitting and spoke up. It's up to you now. You have to beat him for us. Even if I win, you still have to call Dad's teacher. I can't fight him here anyway. I stood up, looking towards Dad after saying this. He walked over to us with a warm smile. She is right. If we fought here, the building wouldn't be around afterwards. You can see us spar together another time. Making it back to the class, the mood was a lot lighter than before. The others weren't hostile anymore, making communication a lot easier between everyone. As you have seen, I am quite strong, but I promise I will help all of you. I swear by this mask. Dad held up Shishu's mask that he wore to suppress his aura. That I will save you. With everyone agreeing to accept Dad as their teacher, and Kenya apologizing for attacking me, we all settled down. The relationship between myself and the others improved. After the mock battles, they accepted Dad and me into their group. After class that day, I settled down into the girls' dorm with Alice and Chloe. There were extra beds, so I was able to choose between them and have plenty of space for myself. The peace didn't last long, though, as both girls started to pepper me with questions as I set up what few belongings I had. Can we call you Kat? How old are you? Where do you come from? Alice started the questions with a barrage, not giving me a chance to answer. Fluffing the pillow on my bed and setting a slime and cat stuffed animal on it as well, I turned back to answer. I guess that is fine, normally only Dad can call me that. As for how old I am, can I say 8? I live in a budding kingdom called Tempest. It was decided that I could use my real name among those in the school. I would still use Elin when it came to things not involving school, however. With the limited knowledge of the outside world my classmates had, it wouldn't be an issue to use my real name. The main reason was to cause less confusion later after they were saved. I didn't expect to have to use the aliases outside of coming and going from the gates of the city to see Shin and Shni. It might become an issue if Holy Knights figured out who I was, but we weren't planning to interact with them. You sounded hesitant when saying you were 8. Why? Chloe picked up on the lie. Placing a beanbag in the corner of the room for later use, I answered. I don't know how old I am. I got adopted by Dad, so I don't know a lot about myself. It was the easiest lie I could come up with that would be believable. I knew I would have to talk to Dad about the topic later so that we could figure out a good story to use. The last thing I wanted to do was to blurt out the fact that I was a monster and get attacked because of it. The Moon Sanctum. A couple of weeks after Rimuru and Katarina started at the school. In the shop owned by Shin and Schnee, there was a meeting taking place that would have all in Glacier trembling in fear. On a day when no one would be coming by, the shop was closed to everyone so the people inside wouldn't be disturbed. The guests were none other than Velzard and Guy Crimson. They had come to talk with Shin and Schnee about Katarina so they could get a true idea of how she was doing. It's rare for the two of you to leave your home, and together at that, Schnee commented. It does happen, though. If we did it more often, the humans would never be able to live in peace. Guy replied. That is a good point. So, what brings you here? Important business, or just wanting to warm up a little by getting away from home? Shin asked. The banter flowed freely, everyone knowing nothing malicious was meant by it. Shin and Schnee were some of the few people who could talk openly with Guy. With Guy recognizing them as equals, his pride took a back seat. His arrogance was less likely to show itself to them as it would with someone who was seen as weaker. We came to talk to you about Katarina, seeing as we can't see her personally yet. What do you think about her? How has her growth been? Velzard asked. While she doesn't have a single memory of the past, she is still the same person we know and love, curious to a fault, emotional at the drop of a hat, and dedicated to the crafts. She still has a childish demeanor, but she was only just recently reincarnated. Shin explained. She doesn't have the strength or skill that she used to, but is improving under our teachings. Unless she evolves to a true demon lord, it is unlikely she will be able to compare to the stronger people in the world. Schnee added. The level of skill she has shown so far is a step in the right direction. Regardless of how much skill she is able to learn, she will never be able to match the truly strong in her current state. As you know, without an ultimate skill, there is little she can do against those who have one. Shin said. Shin and Schnee took turns explaining what they had seen so far, and the picture it painted was both promising and bleak at the same time. If she came across the wrong person right now, she would be easily beaten. That said, she was also improving enough to hold her own if there wasn't a major difference in strength. It's good that she is improving, but I worry about the wars brewing on the horizon. The church won't stand idle with a monster nation being built, as it goes directly against their doctrine. The Eastern Empire also won't be quiet forever now that Veldora has disappeared, Velzard stated. Not considering the wars? I am more concerned about Katarina's soul. It has been shattered, and only a fragment remains. In this weakened state, there are numerous ways she could die. Shin said. True. Soul-based attacks could bypass her protection in such a weakened state. Not only that, but if she gained too much power, it could overwhelm her soul as well and destroy it. The biggest concern with that is if she regained her old skills, as it would prove too much for her soul to handle, Guy noted. There is nothing we can do if something like that were to happen. For now, all we can do is watch over her and hope for the best. Even as a fragment of itself. Katarina's soul is stronger than most. Schnee said. Our best bet would be if her other half came back. It's clear that she hasn't revived yet, or at least got separated from Katarina somehow during her death. I don't know if it is even possible for her to get separated, but when she comes back, it's likely Katarina's soul will be healed. Velzard mentioned. That is true. From what we have seen, she has roughly a third of her soul right now. Even if her other half were to come back to her, there is still likely more missing. It's not impossible for us to help either, as we do have her weapons we could give back to her. Guy said. Those weapons aren't to be messed with lightly, Guy. If you give them to her when she isn't ready, they are just as likely to refuse the connection, damaging the chance for her to fully recover. I would save those as a last resort, or until she has completely recovered. Shin warned. Shin's voice left no room for complaint. He was the one who understood Katarina's personal weapons better than anyone else. The swords were unlike any other weapon in the world and weren't to be taken lightly. With the major topic handled, the four of them spent the rest of the day catching up with one another. Yuzuha came back from the city at one point and joined in as well after preparing dinner. Major powers were moving in the world, and chaos would soon engulf everything once more. With the strongest people in the world moving after a millennium of silence, change was inevitable. People would have to either adapt and survive, or die in their stubbornness to resist change. Freedom Academy. With the time that had flown by, I had finally managed to settle into the rhythm of school life. Classes ranged from peaceful and eventful, to all-out warfare as Dad bribed the others with manga so they would do their work. With the teaching I had been given back home before we came here, I found the work easier than everyone else. The stuff we worked on was considered the basics for being able to survive in this world. This included knowing our numbers and reading, while Dad continued to train everyone in combat. The reading part wasn't an issue for me at all. Sage had translated all the books I read before into the language of this world from the start. Writing, on the other hand, had me struggling. I didn't struggle because I didn't know how to spell everything. My struggle came both with grammar and making my writing readable. Despite my best efforts to speed up, if I didn't take my time with writing, it became sloppy and nearly unreadable. It was only when I was given time to focus on what I was doing that it became much clearer. Dad pointed out the discrepancy between the handwriting I had shown on the homework and what the maps I had made looked like. I didn't really have anything to say back to him about it, as the two were completely opposite of one another. The couple of weeks since we got here were spent studying and bonding with one another. I became much closer to Alice and Chloe and got along well with the boys as well. Dad was accepted as well, and everyone listened to him when he spoke. With everyone getting along, it was finally time to get off the school campus for a bit. With Yuki finally agreeing, of his own accord, and totally not due to a bribe, Dad was allowed to take us outside of the school grounds. It started with a trip to the city where we were allowed to explore freely. The only thing that slowed us down was the string Dad tied to our wrists so we would all stick to a single group. This wasn't my first time out of the school, of course. Each weekend I went outside the city to meet with Shin during my free time when there were no classes. The weekend was spent between practicing crafting and smithing skills, and sparring with Shin, Shni, or Yuzuha. With each lesson I received, I could feel myself getting better than before. I was still an impossibly long way from matching them, but that didn't mean I wasn't getting better. Their strength alone was enough to overpower me, and it was to be expected as they were awakened heroes. Dad also joined me on my trips there, often joining in on the combat training. He was improving by leaps and bounds in his skill with both sword fighting and magic. It was during one of these visits that we met Rain, who was staying with Shin for the time being. She was a friend of theirs and was connected to the True Dragon family as well. She wore a bracelet showing a white dragon, making it clear that Velzard was the one to befriend her. I tried to ask her questions about Velzard, but she refused to answer anything more than surface-level information. Today we were heading to Yoshida's place. He is a famous otherworlder who runs a bakery here in Inglacia, and his sweets were to die for with how good they were. Sugar wasn't something you could get easily in this world, so sweets were a luxury to people, myself included. After exploring our way through the city, we reached our destination, only for Kenya and Alice to get scared by Yoshida himself. He walked outside with a knife in his hand, and they thought he was going to attack them. Dad was mostly to blame for this fright, as he told them that if they ran off, someone would stab them. It was admittedly quite funny in retrospect, and he apologized for it afterwards. While we were there, Yuki's secretary came in as well, but left almost instantly. Yoshida said there weren't any more cream puffs, which seemed to be the reason she left. You will have to come by sooner another day if you want to try the cream puffs. We only make so many a day, and the demand for them is surprisingly high, he said as we settled into a table to enjoy ourselves. With each of us placing an order for various sweets, we enjoyed the afternoon free of schoolwork. Dad was kind enough to pay for us, as he was making a decent amount of money by working at the school. I was also slowly making money, as Shin offered to buy some of the things I made while training under him. The items I made weren't nearly as good quality as his own, but he said that the store needed some lower quality items for the average adventurer as well. It wasn't an insult. He truly did want to offer stuff for the average person instead of only selling to rich people. I personally took it as a challenge to get better so what I made would be considered high class. Stretching out in my chair, I looked around the restaurant and saw that we were the only ones eating in the building. Others came in and bought stuff only to leave soon after, giving us a nice, relaxing time to savor every bite. With the sweets running out an hour later, and it being well into the afternoon, it was time to head back to the school. It wouldn't be the last time we got to leave the school as a group like this, as I knew Dad was working on allowing us to leave the city. When we got permission for that, we could all go to Shin's place to spar and do so without holding back. The barrier around their training area was created to withstand attacks from nearly anyone, meaning there was no way we would be able to break it. Everyone was excited for that day when Dad brought it up, as they wanted to see him and me spar against each other. They never let the topic drop after we refused the first day we were in class. I couldn't blame them either, as what little we said painted a picture that we were both incredibly strong. Tempest, capital city of Rimuru. It was a major day in Tempest. Not because of a festival, but because Tempest had its first major trading partner. Jolmile made it to Tempest with the help of the idiot trio, and was amazed by what he saw. This city is incredible. To think that monsters could build something like this, Jolmile exclaimed. The sights of monsters and humans working together peacefully, a place where no one wanted for anything, shocked him. Tempest was a utopia like none he had seen before. The streets were clean of trash, and everyone was smiling as they went about their day. The buildings were well made, rivaling those of nobles in other cities, even if they weren't nearly as big or fancy. The living standards in Tempest were far above the rest of the world for the normal citizen. To think that I almost let an amazing business opportunity like this pass because of my prejudice against monsters. I'm glad that Fuse recommended me here, as there is an amazing amount of money to be had from the products they sell, Jolmile thought to himself. With a letter of recommendation from Fuse, the executives were more than happy to trade with him. A deal was made from Jolmile to buy 1,000 high potions with the promise of more business later. It would make Jolmile an unprecedented amount of money by reselling the potions later. With each one he sold, the demand for them would increase. Advertising would take care of itself as nobles heard about the incredibly potent results they produced. With word to the right people, the profits would be flooding in with relatively little work needing to be put in. Other developments were happening as well during this time. With the influx of human visitors, the monsters who lived in Tempest were able to grow accustomed to their presence. Unfortunately, not all humans left a good impression. Fars, Stella, and Nemu were taking classes to learn how to use currency. Their final test was to sell potions to humans who were visiting the nation. During the test, a human merchant tried to scam them. He bought potions, changing the amount he wanted of each until they were confused about how much he owed. He then supplied the correct answer to gain their trust. Moments later, he came back and said he changed his mind and wanted a different amount. When he returned the potions and was given the money back, he tried to use the returned potions as part of the value for the new ones. This would lead to him getting the new potions at a much lower price. Jolmile saw this at the last moment and helped the girls out. With his intervention, the merchant had to pay the proper amount for the potions, and the girls passed the test with flying colors. It was this day that they realized they couldn't judge others by looks, and that humans could be either good or bad. Jolmile was furious for the girls' sake. To think that someone would try to scam people just because they aren't familiar with money. It's despicable. It was here that his real personality was showing. Cavil's party, who were accompanying him, were surprised at this. They thought he was a mean merchant that only cared for himself before this. Business in Tempest was flowing, and with merchants starting to come and go, the name of the budding nation would soon be known far and wide. The monster nation was becoming more popular as merchants used the newly built roads to pass through the Jura forest as well. Guy settled into a chair, answering as if the comment meant nothing. It does happen, though. If we did it more often, the humans would never be able to live in peace. With a grin, Shin nodded in agreement. That is a good point. So, what brings you here? Important business, or just wanting to warm up a little by getting away from home? The banter flowed freely, everyone knowing nothing malicious was meant by it. Shin and Shni were some of the few people who could talk openly with Guy. With Guy recognizing them as equals, his pride took a back seat. His arrogance was less likely to show itself to them as it would with someone who was seen as weaker. We came to talk to you about Katarina, seeing as we can't see her personally yet. What do you think about her? How has her growth been? Velzad stepped in, steering the conversation back to the original reason they came. While she doesn't have a single memory of the past, she is still the same person we know and love, curious to a fault, emotional at the drop of a hat, and dedicated to the crafts. She still has a childish demeanor, but she was only just recently reincarnated. She doesn't have the strength or skill that she used to, but is improving under our teachings. Unless she evolves to a true demon lord, it is unlikely she will be able to compare to the stronger people in the world. The level of skill she has shown so far is a step in the right direction. Regardless of how much skill she is able to learn, she will never be able to match the truly strong in her current state. As you know, without an ultimate skill, there is little she can do against those who have won. Shin and Shni took turns explaining what they had seen so far, and the picture it painted was both promising and bleak at the same time. If she came across the wrong person right now, she would be easily beaten. That said, she was also improving enough to hold her own if there wasn't a major difference in strength. It's good that she is improving, but I worry about the wars brewing on the horizon. The church won't stand idle with a monster nation being built, as it goes directly against their doctrine. The Eastern Empire also won't be quiet forever now that Veldora has disappeared, Velzad said, looking unnaturally calm while talking about such a serious topic. Shin thought about the future and what it could bring if not handled correctly. Not considering the wars. I am more concerned about Katarina's soul. It has been shattered, and only a fragment remains. In this weakened state, there are numerous ways she could die. True. Soul-based attacks could bypass her protection in such a weakened state. Not only that, but if she gained too much power, it could overwhelm her soul as well and destroy it. The biggest concern with that is if she regained her old skills, as it would prove too much for her soul to handle, Guy stated, a brief flicker of worry flashing across his eyes. Shni knew the truth of everyone's words, but also knew there was little point in dwelling on the worries. There was little any of them could do at the moment to help. There is nothing we can do if something like that were to happen. For now, all we can do is watch over her and hope for the best. Even as a fragment of itself. Katarina's soul is stronger than most. Our best bet would be if her other half came back. It's clear that she hasn't revived yet, or at least got separated from Katarina somehow during her death. I don't know if it is even possible for her to get separated, but when she comes back, it's likely Katarina's soul will be healed. Velzad was the one to give everyone else hope. Guy smiled softly while thinking about what Velzad said before responding. That is true. From what we have seen, she has roughly a third of her soul right now. Even if her other half were to come back to her, there is still likely more missing. It's not impossible for us to help either, as we do have her weapons we could give back to her. Those weapons aren't to be messed with lightly, Guy. If you give them to her when she isn't ready, they are just as likely to refuse the connection, damaging the chance for her to fully recover. I would save those as a last resort, or until she has completely recovered. Shin's voice left no room for complaint. He was the one who understood Katarina's personal weapons better than anyone else. The swords were unlike any other weapon in the world, and weren't to be taken lightly. With the major topic handled, the four of them spent the rest of the day catching up with one another. Yuzuha came back from the city at one point and joined in as well after preparing dinner. Major powers were moving in the world, and chaos would soon engulf everything once more. With the strongest people in the world moving after a millennium of silence, change was inevitable. People would have to either adapt and survive, or die in their stubbornness to resist change. Katarina's POV. Freedom Academy. With the time that had flown by, I had finally managed to settle into the rhythm of school life. Classes ranged from peaceful and eventful to all-out warfare as Dad bribed the others with manga so they would do their work. With the teaching I had been given back home before we came here, I found the work easier than everyone else. The stuff we worked on was considered the basics for being able to survive in this world. This included knowing our numbers and reading, while Dad continued to train everyone in combat. The reading part wasn't an issue for me at all. Sage had translated all the books I read before into the language of this world from the start. Writing, on the other hand, had me struggling. I didn't struggle because I didn't know how to spell everything. My struggle came both with grammar and making my writing readable. Despite my best efforts to speed up, if I didn't take my time with writing, it became sloppy and nearly unreadable. It was only when I was given time to focus on what I was doing that it became much clearer. Dad pointed out the discrepancy between the handwriting I had shown on the homework and what the maps I had made looked like. I didn't really have anything to say back to him about it, as the two were completely opposite of one another. The couple of weeks since we got here were spent studying and bonding with one another. I became much closer to Alice and Chloe, and got along well with the boys as well. Dad was accepted as well, and everyone listened to him when he spoke. With everyone getting along, it was finally time to get off the school campus for a bit. With Yuki finally agreeing, of his own accord, and totally not due to a bribe, Dad was allowed to take us outside of the school grounds. It started with a trip to the city where we were allowed to explore freely. The only thing that slowed us down was the string Dad tied to our wrists so we would all stick to a single group. This wasn't my first time out of the school, of course. Each weekend I went outside the city to meet with Shin during my free time when there were no classes. The weekend was spent between practicing crafting and smithing skills, and sparring with Shin, Shni, or Yuzuha. With each lesson I received, I could feel myself getting better than before. I was still an impossibly long way from matching them, but that didn't mean I wasn't getting better. Their strength alone was enough to overpower me, and it was to be expected as they were awakened heroes. Dad also joined me on my trips there, often joining in on the combat training. He was improving by leaps and bounds in his skill with both sword fighting and magic. It was during one of these visits that we met Rain, who was staying with Shin for the time being. She was a friend of theirs and was connected to the True Dragon family as well. She wore a bracelet showing a white dragon, making it clear that Velzard was the one to befriend her. I tried to ask her questions about Velzard, but she refused to answer anything more than surface-level information. Today we were heading to Yoshida's place. He is a famous otherworlder who runs a bakery here in Inglacia, and his sweets were to die for with how good they were. Sugar wasn't something you could get easily in this world, so sweets were a luxury to people, myself included. After exploring our way through the city, we reached our destination, only for Kenya and Alice to get scared by Yoshida himself. He walked outside with a knife in his hand, and they thought he was going to attack them. Dad was mostly to blame for this fright, as he told them that if they ran off, someone would stab them. It was admittedly quite funny in retrospect, and he apologized for it afterwards. While we were there, Yuki's secretary came in as well, but left almost instantly. Yoshida said there weren't any more cream puffs, which seemed to be the reason she left. You will have to come by sooner another day if you want to try the cream puffs. We only make so many a day, and the demand for them is surprisingly high, he said as we settled into a table to enjoy ourselves. With each of us placing an order for various sweets, we enjoyed the afternoon free of schoolwork. Dad was kind enough to pay for us, as he was making a decent amount of money by working at the school. I was also slowly making money, as Shin offered to buy some of the things I made while training under him. The items I made weren't nearly as good quality as his own, but he said that the store needed some lower quality items for the average adventurer as well. It wasn't an insult. He truly did want to offer stuff for the average person instead of only selling to rich people. I personally took it as a challenge to get better, so what I made would be considered high class. Stretching out in my chair, I looked around the restaurant and saw that we were the only ones eating in the building. Others came in and bought stuff only to leave soon after, giving us a nice, relaxing time to savor every bite. With the sweets running out an hour later, and it being well into the afternoon, it was time to head back to the school. It wouldn't be the last time we got to leave the school as a group like this, as I knew Dad was working on allowing us to leave the city. When we got permission for that, we could all go to Shin's place to spar and do so without holding back. The barrier around their training area was created to withstand attacks from nearly anyone, meaning there was no way we would be able to break it. Everyone was excited for that day when Dad brought it up, as they wanted to see him and me spar against each other. They never let the topic drop after we refused the first day we were in class. I couldn't blame them either, as what little we said painted a picture that we were both incredibly strong. Third-person POV. Tempest, capital city of Rimuru. It was a major day in Tempest. Not because of a festival, but because Tempest had its first major trading partner. Jolmile made it to Tempest with the help of the idiot trio, and was amazed by what he saw. This city is incredible. To think that monsters could build something like this, Jolmile said as he entered the city. The sights of monsters and humans working together peacefully, a place where no one wanted for anything, shocked him. Tempest was a utopia like none he had seen before. The streets were clean of trash, and everyone was smiling as they went about their day. The buildings were well made, rivaling those of nobles in other cities, even if they weren't nearly as big or fancy. The living standards in Tempest were far above the rest of the world for the normal citizen. To think that I almost let an amazing business opportunity like this pass because of my prejudice against monsters. I'm glad that Fuse recommended me here, as there is an amazing amount of money to be had from the products they sell. Jolmile spoke to himself while walking down the streets, making sure to take everything in. With a letter of recommendation from Fuse, the executives were more than happy to trade with him. A deal was made from Jolmile to buy 1,000 high potions with the promise of more business later. It would make Jolmile an unprecedented amount of money by reselling the potions later. With each one he sold, the demand for them would increase. Advertising would take care of itself as nobles heard about the incredibly potent results they produced. With word to the right people, the profits would be flooding in with relatively little work needing to be put in. Other developments were happening as well during this time. With the influx of human visitors, the monsters who lived in Tempest were able to grow accustomed to their presence. Unfortunately, not all humans left a good impression. Fars, Stella, and Nemu were taking classes to learn how to use currency. Their final test was to sell potions to humans who were visiting the nation. During the test, a human merchant tried to scam them. He bought potions, changing the amount he wanted of each until they were confused about how much he owed. He then supplied the correct answer to gain their trust. Moments later, he came back and said he changed his mind and wanted a different amount. When he returned the potions and was given the money back, he tried to use the returned potions as part of the value for the new ones. This would lead to him getting the new potions at a much lower price. Jolmile saw this at the last moment and helped the girls out. With his intervention, the merchant had to pay the proper amount for the potions, and the girls passed the test with flying colors. It was this day that they realized they couldn't judge others by looks, and that humans could be either good or bad. Jolmile was furious for the girls' sake. To think that someone would try to scam people just because they aren't familiar with money. It's despicable. It was here that his real personality was showing. Caval's party, who were accompanying him, were surprised at this. They thought he was a mean merchant that only cared for himself before this. Business in Tempest was flowing, and with merchants starting to come and go, the name of the budding nation would soon be known far and wide. The monster nation was becoming more popular as merchants used the newly built roads to pass through the Jura forest as well.